dive in. So first of all, I encourage everyone to think about writing books. This is actually maybe the fifth book I wrote, and I actually wrote like this might be my third book I wrote with Christian Posta. So
Oh,
finding a good partner is interesting because Christian is such a good writer. So I am so lucky, I would say, to work with him.
what's working
And
with between you guys, you think?
um, I think so. First of all, we work in the same technology domain, so that's really helpful. Second of all, I think he just writes really well, and also motivates me to write better. What I offer a lot is I'm a very good like organizing, keep him on track and everything. So
Yeah.
and I'm good at brainstorming. So it's been a good team, I would say. So you talk about this topic is very fast moving, right, Sam? So
Yeah.
one of the challenges with AI agents and Kubernetes is it's so changing so fast. So we thought about in the past when Christian and I did two books together was on Istio. One with Istio, I think both were with Istio Ambient. And we did with O'Reilly. So what we find out though is when working with a big publisher like O'Reilly,
Hmm.
obviously they make our book a lot better, but you have to work with their timeline, and they have a very long timeline to the moment you have the draft to have like 3 rounds of editing and publishing, and that would take I would say at least 2 months when you have
Hmm.
the draft ready, and probably more even for a short book. So we actually didn't discuss about this idea of writing a book until July, August-ish last year, and we want to
Hmm.
write it for KubeCon Atlanta, which I believe it's in middle November, if I remember the dates correctly. So given the dates, we didn't think we could make it for O'Reilly short book, which is what they call report. And the other thing we didn't like about being locked into O'Reilly was O'Reilly reports was very short. They didn't like examples, coding example or steps, which we felt at this stage of AI agents in Kubernetes. I mean, the concept is there. People want actually to try things in addition to understanding the concepts. So that's why we feel like there is a lot more freedom if we actually go through our
Yeah.
own publishing process, which we could make it longer and we could continue editing it. So this is why we kind of decided, why don't we just do a self-publish this time? It's not like we don't know how to write books. We've done book writing, we've done go through the guidance and contract with O'Reilly. We didn't want to lock this book for 2 years when we can't make any change, because when you write a book with O'Reilly, their contract is every time you make change, you have to pay them another
Oh
same
wow,
amount
I
of
didn't know
money.
that. It's more
Yeah,
like you're updating the context for them. I wouldn't expect them to make the author pay, to be honest, but okay, that's new.
yeah, so you have to pay them the same amount of money for every single revision as a new book, which is very costly. So we
Yeah.
think with AI moving so fast, we're going to need updated every few months, right? Like KubeCon Amsterdam is coming up. Well, Christian and I already started conversation on how we're going to update this for Amsterdam. Your feedback is going to be tremendous important for us. And I know some of the open source project we cover in this book, some of the API already been changing for one of
Hmm.
the upcoming releases. We're going to announce, I think, next week, for example, with K Gateway config agent gateway. So it's just critical with the speed of AI, not logging to a publisher like O'Reilly or any publisher, and then we have the freedom to keep the book current and live. So that was our goal. It's kind of to be able to educate you all on the latest and greatest and in the space.
I
So
appreciate this in the detail of information, because we've been reading so many audiobooks here. We had no idea how the process was something like this. And there are certain things I'm sure you might be giving up when you decide this path, right? I don't know, in terms of maybe making money out of your book or something like that. But also, I appreciate the way you approach this problem. Like, agents are moving so fast, so we have to move along with them. It's incredible.
Yeah, and we found when we first actually post the book on social, some people would asking us how can we purchase it. And the moment we said that the book is free, I think a lot of people were very happy. So I'm actually really happy we made it free, because it's all talking about open source and concepts anyway. So I feel like the loyalty from the book are not as important as having people interested in the topic.
So Sevi, since you asked, are you thinking of writing a book on platform engineering management? You'd be an excellent source. You'd be an excellent source.
Oh my God, thank you, Jack. That's very kind of you. But I mean, seeing all these amazing authors and how much work this requires, I don't think I have this kind of commitment or time. But yeah, why not? The book club always needs books, so we're always encouraging authors who come to the sessions to write more books. Like, can you please write more? This is just like outdating now. Thank you, Kat. These are really kind words, but no, well, if you can share real life stories, maybe that would be nice one day. Thank you. And yeah, and the topic. I've seen you in the Istio space and open source space for such a long time. And why did you decide to just shift your perspective towards AI agents at this point in time, Lynn? I know the obvious answers, but I just want to hear your side of the story.
No, it's a great question. So I'm going to flip into like the chapters we have in the book as I
Yeah.
answer the question. So we do believe AI agents play a key role in Kubernetes and cloud native. I don't know if you all know, in the Kubernetes community, we are like we talk about a decade of cloud native, right? Kubernetes, we talk about Kubernetes celebrate 10th anniversary. So some of people out there are feeling Kubernetes is aging, right? I mean, when you think about Kubernetes is aging, you start to think about how can we make Kubernetes sexy again? How can we make
Relevant, yeah.
Kubernetes relevant in the age of AI agents? You probably all have seen the new announcement. I think that comes through like first week or second week of December. There was new AAIF, Agentic AI Foundation that was launched to focus on agentic AI, right? There was like a big name and like Anthropic and a lot of companies behind it. So with Solar is also part of it. I believe like AWS blog, there was just a lot of company behind that foundation. But us as part of the cloud native community.
May I interrupt you for a second? I actually didn't know about this progress update. And so is this part of the Linux Foundation, the Agentic AI Foundation?
Sorry, I couldn't see your face very well because I was sharing the screen. So feel
No,
free
no.
to interrupt me anytime. So this is a foundation, new foundation outside of CNCF, but it's part of Linux Foundation. So when you look at Linux Foundation, it's like the top of the software foundation that owns the AAIF, that owns the CNCF, that also owns like a bunch of other foundations, right? Like
Yeah.
I think the PyTorch is there, right? So you think about
So
it
we
that
have a
way. It's a sister
GitOps Foundation. Yeah, some names come to me, but yes, okay, perfect. So now Linux Foundation will, I think, be giving support and funding, I'm guessing, for this foundation to be set up with the support of some companies, right?
Right, yeah, because it's definitely the foundation give the support. I mean, the founding member, because they also have a tier of like a gold, a diamond, silver. They are all part of the
Yes.
foundation that's supporting the movement.
I
So
can see AWS, Anthropic, Block, Bloomberg, Cloudflare, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI has joined already, but I think there are more members.
oh, they are
Oh,
the
yes,
diamond. They are the diamond. The
diamond
top
ones,
tier
yeah.
sponsor. Yeah, so they are
Oh, it's a long
also
list. Yeah.
a huge list. Probably almost 100 companies.
Solo.io also.
Yeah, we are a silver member.
Yes, I can see the Netherlands-based company there as well. So interesting. Really, thank you, Lynn, for sharing this. I don't know where I was when this was happening. Probably enjoying the snow in the first time in 5 years in the Netherlands. So
No worries. I'm tracking the space more closely than you.
yeah, thank you.
So when we look at the Kubernetes ecosystem,
Mhm.
how can we be more attached to the new thing, the sexy thing, so that people will continue using Kubernetes and we're not outdated. So that was one of the key motivation for us to think about this book. And also it aligns with some of the open source project that Solo created in the open source really well, which aligns with this initiative I just talked about, right? How do we make cloud native more agentic, more sexy to the new world, to MCP AI agents? So that's also
Also
why.
possible for startups that work on AI to, I think, pick Kubernetes to also as a platform to build things on, I guess, right?
Yeah, totally. Yep.
All
Yeah,
right.
so that's kind of how we decided how we want to structure the book. As I was
Mhm.
mentioning, we didn't have a lot of time to write after KubeCon Atlanta, so we decided it's important to have a basic instruction about AI agent on MCP, which is the first chapter, and then we feel like when people learning things, it's very useful when they actually can understand some projects and have some hands-on associated with it. This is also why we try to introduce these open source projects we created. I believe they are also part of CNCF. K-Agent is part of CNCF. KMCP also. Agent Gateway is part of the Linux Foundation, and then go through a real example of how an AI reliability agent can help users debugging their networking problems in Kubernetes, and how we can have observability through Istio and ambient through agent gateway. And so that's kind of how, where we come up with the book on the initial version. We plan to add more versions because what we have right now is more fundamental basic stuff. What we wanted to add is a little bit more advanced scenario, like how can we do more on security policy, on the auth to the MCP server. So happy to chat more. But if there's no further question, maybe we can go through to the first
Yes,
chapter.
that's what I really wanted to do. So, since I've heard that we'll be hosting you guys and this book and the book club, I decided to just stay a little bit away from the space so that I would be able to ask the noob questions, the silly questions in the room, which probably I'm famous for. Like sometimes some technology comes or an author brings a very detailed explanation, and I'm like, wait, why did we need this again? So you'll be hearing this from me a
No,
lot,
I love these
okay?
questions. And sometimes it also reminds me, maybe the book wasn't clear on that. So give us all. Now that we are
I
alive.
actually loved how the introduction was arranged. But do you want to, go a little bit,
Yeah, let's do that.
into the first chapter?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we are a live book, so savvy. Don't feel bad of anything because you give us a chance to improve, basically. Yeah. So, so back
Yeah.
to.
So what's an AI agent, and like why what's happening in the MCP space? Like why do we need an MCP?
That's a great question. So we try to kind of explain this in the chapter 1, starting with AI agents. So AI agents, I'll answer your question on MCP first, because I think it might be more useful to understand MCP and then AI agents. So MCP is all about in connecting agents to tools. So the interesting way to think about MCP is like a universal adapter. People think about it as like the USB-C adapter on your laptop, on your phone, that allows the MCP client, which could be your AI agents, which could be your application, which could be your cursor Claude Code, Visual Studio Code, whatever editing you are using, to connect to the MCP server through a consistent way. So that's what MCP is most useful, is that consistency protocol for describing the tools that are available, how to call them, and how to exchange the data. And MCP uses JSON RPC. Go ahead.
To basically streamline all the now our tools we would like to interact with, like having some sort of standardization, I guess, right, around all this communication will be happening soon. But yeah, I was like really surprised. So we were just talking about AI, then all the abbreviations started just like coming from everywhere. MCPs, A2A. So I'm like, okay, this is just booming right now.
Yeah, totally. I do think MCP is at a stage. I'm part of the MCP contributor community, and I saw every day there's like 10 MCP published on the MCP registry. So MCP is like has an amazing ecosystem, and I do think a lot of people right now is using like one agent calling MCP, or maybe it's not even agent. It could be actually what I'm using right now is Claude Code or Cursor calling MCP. So so MCP is definitely dominant in the market, and it's also part of the AAIF, which is important to note here. A2A, on the other hand, even though we did wrote about A2A, I don't think it's being used that widely, and it's not part of the AAIF Foundation either. So A2A is all about connecting agent to each other. But in the reality, I think most people are just deal with one agent right now. So A2A, I think it has generated a lot of noise out there, but I'm not sure it's being at a stage that's going to be the dominant protocol. I don't know if it would. I would challenge it. It may not at this stage, but it's good for everybody to be aware of it exists. And also there are some competing protocol related to A2A exists too, which we didn't touch because they are even less popular or famous compared with A2A.
Okay. Lynn, I know you can't see the screen. Jack has a question. He has his hand up, so I'd like to give.
Just a quick one. I agree with you. MCP versus
A2A.
A2A. Yeah, it's MCP happens all the time. I haven't seen A2A, but I'm sure it's around.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. The question for you: I use Claude Code with my Kubernetes cluster quite successfully. Am I doing MCP calls as part of that? I just say Claude, here's my cluster. Help me set up a gateway API. Is that using MCP, or does Claude have a different way of talking to Kubernetes clusters?
That's a great question. I actually just started using Claude Code. I do think it's better than Cursor based on my brief experience today. Depends on how you set up your Claude Code. Inside of Claude, there is a configuration JSON file. So if you poke on your JSON file, if it doesn't using a Kubernetes MCP server, which I suspect you don't, because you're not aware of it, right? So that means it's not using any MCP server that you config. It's not talking to your MCP server. Claude Code, however, can, based on some of the existing data and documentation, figure out the YAML configuration for you, right? It's the same as when you go to ChatGPT. You can ask ChatGPT, can you create a gateway or route configuration for me for my for my particular pods or something. So it doesn't necessarily have to use MCP in that case. I suspect yours not. So you can confirm that by poking
Okay,
on your
thank
pod
you though. Thank you though.
configuration.
Yeah, for anyone on the call, I recommend Claude Code plus Kubernetes cluster.
Lovely.
It's amazing.
I wonder, how would I know if my Kubernetes cluster has an MCP server, by the way?
That's a great question. Depends on how your MCP server are exposed, right? So normally people do that through a registry or a gateway that's multiplexing multiple MCP servers in a cluster together and using that gateway as a central point for security, policy control, and observability. So for instance, Sav, if you are managing a huge Kubernetes cluster, which is composed of 100 teams, each team could potentially go to their namespace and write their own MCP server, but because they're not necessarily exposed to other team, you may not be aware of it, right? Because at the end of the day, the MCP server is just a code. Think about it, Python code that follow the MCP spec to declare their tools, right? So you may not even aware of that unless they have a need to say, hey, I want to expose my MCP server to be used by another team, and what's the best practice to do that? Should I configure using a gateway to allow a platform engineer to control that?
Yes, that was incredible. Thank you. One quick note, maybe I missed it. For me, the way book was structured gave me the impression that A to A is the thing and it's here to stay. So until you mentioned, I wasn't aware of other protocols that could enable agent-to-agent conversation, or like they might even, I don't know, be bigger than A to A. But yeah, that's perfectly fine. Thank you for mentioning this in the session. So yeah, could we maybe just go through this diagram, really nice diagram here, like how all this work together,
This one?
so that, yeah, we put
If I can
things,
make it bigger.
yeah, I think right on the, yes, top, you
Okay.
have it.
I can zoom in again, hopefully. Yep. Yeah, so so in this diagram, I mean, it's just one scenario. I have to clarify that this diagram is a little bit more complex in a sense that this is the user, right? The user is talking to the agent and ask the agent to debugging a problem. In this case, is why is my service, for example, in Kubernetes, that's failing? So your agent could potentially be running in Kubernetes, and the agent typically is configured to use a large language model because the agent needs that intelligence to figure out what to do and what tools to call. And typically, when you construct an agent, the agent has the system prompt, which is right here, which describes the instructions you want to tell the agent creator tells the agents to do, and the user prompt, which is what the user is actually entering, and the tool information, which are what are the tools the agent can not necessarily like access control, but the agents wants to use.
Yeah.
So that's making up the agent. So when the user asks this question, the agent is going to work with the large language model that's configured for the agent to use to determine what are the tools the agent needs to do and what are the sequence to call the tool based on the results of the tool, or whether the agent needs to call another agent. So that's what this diagram is for. And then in this diagram, we're also referring to a MCP server that has the ability to call Kubernetes API. So it's probably a Kubernetes or cloud native related MCP server that's likely running in the Kubernetes cluster, and it has the ability to, do something interact with the Kubernetes API and bring that response back to the agent. So this example is get some logs and then bring the logs back to the agent so the agent can use that data from the tool calling to make the decision on the next step, or maybe send another question to the user or send a summary to the user. So I think that's what this diagram is about.
That's perfect. Thank you. I have a question, perfectly stupid one. So say I have a Kubernetes cluster and I have this set up already, but my main business or my main focus is not this Kubernetes cluster. This is just my, tooling. But my main concern is fixing something somewhere else, right? Through APIs. Why would Kubernetes be a good place to put all these tools in then? Can you maybe explain, how Kubernetes would make things easier for us, or like is a good platform to build things on right now for agents?
That's a great question. So are you asking for the tools or the agents running in Kubernetes or both?
Both, actually. Both,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so the reason we're looking at Kubernetes to run those is I think if you're running everything locally in your machine, Kubernetes may not be that interesting play, right? Because you could run your MCP tools locally using Python, for example, and then do a bunch of work. But if your agent or MCP tools is interacting with the Kubernetes cluster, and running it in the Kubernetes cluster makes a lot of sense because you could leverage a lot of benefits from Kubernetes. You could leverage portability benefits from Kubernetes, right? In order to scale to run it in a real environment outside of your laptop, you have that deployment consistency experience with Kubernetes. All the benefits with Kubernetes. You have the scaling, you have the upgrade effortless, all that benefits to actually take a MCP server or agent outside of your comfort zone, which is your local laptop. I think that's the value Kubernetes brings, which I can imagine that's continue to be used for. Because the way I'm thinking about agents and MCP, it's like a microservice, but it's more, right? Because traditionally microservices, we need to have like identity, we need to have visibility, we need to have policy control. We're going to need all that if we need to run agents and MCP in production environments in Kubernetes, but we're probably going to need more because agents and MCP, they have this context layer where the user asking something and the response, that context is we call it layer 8, right? On top of all the traditional layer 4, 3 to 7. Now that you have another layer, but it doesn't mean we can leverage what we already created for Kubernetes.
Amazing. So let me put out what I have in mind. So we're thinking about a system that actually can detect issues, let's say GitOps system that can connect to different tooling, or I don't know, my harness or whatever tooling I'm using for my pipelines, and understand issues, maybe connect to a database and make sense of the errors and all the messages and metrics it's getting. And if that's the purpose, being able to fix it itself, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about engineering problems, we have the deterministic, undeterministic ways of fixing one single problem, right? So normally when you write a code, there's an algorithm and it works the way almost always as you plan it to. Well, it should. But with LLMs and all these agents, things are changing a little bit. Can you talk about this difference for us?
Yeah, so based on my observation, if you are sending the same user prompt to the same agent, you might be surprised the output sometimes is different, right? It's not like when you execute your Python code or Go code with the same parameter, most of the time, well, almost 100% time, unless you have a bug in your code, it would you would expect it's like a mess almost, right? You would expect the same response. But with agent, because the large language model could decide based on the output, it could and based on the prompt, the large language model could give a different tool calling sequence or different interpretation, and which could change the response back and forth, different that undeterministic of large language model. I think we also touched on this chapter.
Yeah,
It's
first chapter,
making
I think, have this definition, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere
it's
here.
making this really interesting for AI agent. That's why people are talking about like agent operation. How do we evaluate the agent and make sure it can actually do the work?
Yeah.
And also people talk about a lot about like human in the loop when working with agent, because the undeterministic realistic make people think they can't 100% trust the agent, so they still want to have the human in the loop as part of the decision chain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, I saw the microservices note over there, like traditional software components. I feel like AI tools and agents are like a decade late, because that's what we needed in the when microservices were booming. Like
Yeah.
I think as human system owners hit a ceiling of making sense of all the signals from a microservices system, that I think this is a great time that these tools are taking over this from us, because I know so many teams are basically just fed up by just having too many moving parts everywhere in their systems, and being able to see where they stand all the way to the end is getting harder and harder for people. I think, yeah, if we had something like this when microservices were just, booming, that would be super cool, I think.
Yeah, I do think part of the value the agent can provide and the MCP tool can provide is to help people work on stuff they don't want to do. So think
Yeah,
about that way. We're not putting them on the biggest challenges we want to solve. We're asking them to offload us on some of the tasks we didn't want to do. For instance, patching, producing like CVE packages, patching your environment for CVE. Those tends to be boring and a little bit more repetitive. I feel like those are the things people can start
yeah.
trusting agent more, and also like onboarding a new member repetitively. So I think those are the good scenario to have the agent helping even with existing microservices, like what you said of, keep growing. It's harder to keep track of things.
Yeah. In my first interaction with, I don't know, OpenAI was, I think I was just copying and pasting some extract of a system error somewhere. Like, I really didn't want to read human machine code, like machine output anymore, because I'm 46 now. I don't want to just make sense of tiny little code. I
No,
just
no, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah, like putting it in one of the tools, one of the first tools I had, and then asking it to make sense for me was such a relief. I think for months on, I used it for that purpose. I don't know which AI tool. I think it was probably ChatGPT, because it was the first one. It was such a relief not having to read machine outputs anymore, like, so that it makes sense for me. Um, And
totally.
yeah,
I think it's also
we
improved
have a question
productivity
in the
too.
chat, by the way.
Yeah,
Sorry,
let me
sorry.
check. No, I was
I can read it for you. No worries.
no,
So
I can.
Abiram is asking, yet to get into details of this book, have a question to understand if this book covers a scenario where we host an agent in Kubernetes to make it stateless, but the agent requires an ID to maintain stateful responses. How can we effectively manage state in such a design? Very detailed question. Thank you, Abiram. Additionally, if we deploy multiple Kubernetes clusters to handle traffic, how would the stateful design ensure consistency and reliability across clusters? I think that's a very good question.
That's a great question. I have to say the book doesn't cover this level of detail. As obvious, this book right now, the few chapters is very introductory. But one thing that's really interesting I want to share is we all know the agent have state right now, but the MCP community just published a proposal to make MCP stateless, which is super interesting. So definitely that's worth checking it out, because if the tools, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I can foresee in the next few quarters, if we can make MCP to be stateless, maybe we can make agent to be stateless too. So what I think, I didn't read that proposal in close, but I think what's talking about is having some of that context as part of the conversation, as part of the session, and passing around through the communication. So that's super interesting. And then you also talk about having multiple clusters to handle traffic. How did the stateful design ensure consistency and reliability? That's an interesting question. I think having a database probably would be useful in this case across multiple cluster. If you have some state you have to maintain, that based on my experience. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on that.
No, but I had a similar question. For example, now the what's the right word? The prompts take longer because the responses, are taking longer. So I was thinking, oh, what if the agent, is caught right in the middle of the work? So how would it be like to get back to this operation? Would it again check the state? So it reminded me of how Kubernetes works, eventual consistency. It checks the state again, sees something, but then in an undeterministic approach finds maybe a new way to fix it, but eventually, fixing the state like we do in GitOps, right? So yeah. So we have, a few more questions.
Yeah, I think also Kosuk also mentioned about maintaining checkpoint like a banking system, which is to your point, Savvy, for stateful agents on stateless Kubernetes, well, it's connecting to a database like Postgres, right?
Yeah.
This is not a unique problem, I guess, to agents, except the agents is more stable than microservices in general. Yeah.
It's a common microservices problem indeed.
Yeah, I think you were referring to the question from Tiago.
Yes, it was mentioned. I'm going to read it now for you, for everyone. It was mentioned having a human in the loop to validate the outputs. It is not feasible for all use cases, especially for those using agent to interact with users. Does K-agent, helps dealing with this? Yeah, I really don't want to run out of time before we touch kagent.dev. But if you could answer this question, maybe we just quickly also go over that one.
Yeah, let's do that. So we haven't touched K-agent. Obviously, I think you probably read the whole book already. So congratulations and good job. So in this case, I mean, K-agent can definitely help human in the loop in this case, which we showed you in the example. So you probably read that. In the example, we were using GitHub MCP server where we ask K-agent to propose a PR, and that PR needs approval by a human. So that's how we tag human along in the approval process. And once the PR is approved and merged, and then the code can be progressed to the next step, which could mean to deploy into your environment, especially if you have Argo config. Now, your question is more about what if I don't want a human in the loop to validate the outputs, if I understood correctly. Yes, depends on how you build your agents and tools and what your instruction is. What we showed in our book was we were trying to be cautious where we asked the agent to always ask the human before any major moves. You could also configure your agent, assuming you trusted it enough, to say, hey, just go ahead, apply this configuration for us, assuming you have a tool to be able to also have the right permission to apply the tools without asking the user. I believe some of the default agent provided by K-agent can do that. Some of our Kubernetes or Istio agent have the ability to apply configuration without asking user to approve that.
Cool. Can we quickly also discuss kagent.dev?
You mean our website?
No, actually, chapter 2 is an introduction to K-agent. So I thought maybe, I think it's page 9.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So yeah.
No worries. I have it open, that's why.
So
it's not like I memorize page numbers when I read the book.
Yeah, so K-agent, we started K-agent actually just last year. It becomes very, very popular in the cloud native ecosystem, and we have a tons of contributor from outside of Solo also contributing to K-agent. What's interesting about K-agent is we intended to have K-agent being the platform for people running AI agents in Kubernetes. And we know what platform engineers, everybody work with Kubernetes, loves the YAML file, loves the declaration characteristic of YAML. So we created a way for user to be able to build their agents using the K-agent YAML configuration, and then taking that YAML configuration, deploy into Kubernetes, and then K-agent controller will figure out and run the agent for you. By default, K-agent uses I think Google's ADK framework.
Yeah.
But you can also bring your own framework, which we didn't cover extensively how you bring your own, but K-agent does supports that. By default, K-agent ships with a couple of default agent you can play with, along with a bunch of MCP server and tools you could use. So just touching on quickly about K-agent is the declarative. I think it's the most interesting part of K-agent, where you can declare your tools, you can declare your large language model, you can declare, your agent instruction, all in part of the YAML configuration. Yeah, so the framework we talk about, that's provided by K-agent, and the default packaged tools with K-agent. Let's see.
So yeah, I can see some examples of tools. For example, an Argo, Istio Cilium, Helm. Yes. Yeah. So there's apparently a library, right?
Yeah, there's a tool library where you can see all the tools. I think we have 180 tools when I capture the screenshots. So those tools are available for your agents to use. We also have maybe 7 to 8 tool agents that's available by default, and you can see the agent configuration is just feeding like the name, system message, tools, model config, and namespace and description. So we show you a sample. You can see how declarative the key agent is. This is a sample for the Kubernetes agents. Yeah.
Okay, that looks really exciting.
And we support a bunch of large language models. So in this case, but I think by default it's the ChatGPT one, the OpenAI one. So you could use also switch with Gemini. Sorry.
Well, maybe in the next session we can try to, I don't know, do a demo or something like this for K-Agent. I'll chat to Carlos about it. I'd like to ask the attendees if they have a question, because we'll be running out of time, so we have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Please do ask your last questions to Lynn. That's an amazing opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to do homework on K-Agent. It was talked a lot about at KubeCon. And speaking of KubeCon, Lynn, I saw you at least once at KubeCon. I put links to your talks at KubeCon in the notes for this session.
Oh, amazing! Yes, I actually.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, Sophie, she's like a star. She's like one of the.
I know. We're really lucky to have her.
We're lucky to have. I'm delighted to have you here.
Yeah, exactly. I have a question about all this setup. I know we might not have time to finish it. We can discuss it next week as well. You know, when you ask a certain things to be fixed, like the agent has to have the right context, right? So I still find it hard to imagine, you know, how all this will be provided. So, for example, is the agent checking the Kubernetes API or some other API to make a decision? Or first collect all the context-related signals, or I don't know, metrics maybe, and then put them together and then decide which tools need to be used. Is this how it works in general? No.
I don't think we covered that in the books, but happy to answer any questions you have in that in that specific area. The book right now, because like I mentioned, we didn't have a lot of time to write, so it was more focused on basic concept and getting the sample example working.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I think I also need to play with the tools now in the book to prepare for the next session. And we're almost over time. I would like to thank everybody who is joined, and would like to, make sure we close on time, because sometimes we just go in tangents and it takes forever to give our authors their time back. Thank you, Lynn, for joining us. This was an excellent opening to this book, and I love the book already, but I want to play with the technology as well, and I'm sure others feel the same way. Last words, anyone who wants to say something?
No, thank you so much for having me. Look forward to the next chapter, reading the book
Me
and
too.
doing a demo together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for your time, and this was incredible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining. Cheers. Happy rest of your week. Bye.